I see a few familiar faces. Revisor Siebers, I think the bill we'll be talking about is 2160. That is the one vehicle we have in conference. Is that right?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So Representative Mason, you are at the Capitol. And Senator Holland, are you at the Capitol or?
No, I'm in my office in my home.
Very good.
Which happens to be my son's old bedroom closet. So
no, it's the new Zoom room.
Exactly. Now, is that a virtual background behind you, Chairman Johnson?
It is a virtual background.
I was saying, it looks awful neat and tidy. Yes.
It looks remarkably like the office in Topeka. If I go to settings and change it, which it may or may not let me do. There is a simple rock wall behind me here, which has worked fairly well as a green screen.
Very good.
So now at the farm.
It's accurate right down to the license plate, but
Yep.
by left ear.
It's fairly current.
There you go.
Yep.
I was distracted when they mentioned the bill number. Could you repeat that for me?
I believe it was 2160, but if the revisor will correct me, that'd be great.
You are correct. It is House Bill 2160. Originally, it had some sales tax components that's already been passed last year.
So I see Representative Gartner and our other two senators may be working to join us from the room in the Capitol. You know, I almost considered not putting on a tie. So I see that I am in the minority by making a bad decision. For the majority, if I had meaningfully more talent and could be counted among the staff team. Well, it's been a beautiful few days.
Unmuted. Okay. Representative Johnson, this is Tom Day with Legislative Services.
Tom Day.
Yes, sir. Senator Tyson is here.
Oh, okay.
We are in 548. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Thanks for all your work to help get things set up. Senator Tyson and Kirshen, good to have you on the phone. So with that, we will start our meeting. And Revisor Siebers, do we need the same disclosure that we've typically done on Zoom calls?
You know, Mr. Chairman, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea if you don't mind indulging me for a minute or two. Due to the health and safety concerns, members of the public are not in attendance at this meeting, but full access to this meeting is being conducted by a medium of interactive communications, allowing members of the public without cost to listen to the meeting through the use of live stream audio broadcasting on the internet and teleconference as available. The audio link can be reached by www.kansaslegislator.org, selecting the audio video link, then State House Live and Archive. Each speaker will state their name each time the individual begins speaking or voting so that the individual can be readily identified by remote listeners. All participants are required to ensure that microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are muted when the participants are not speaking so that the ability of remote listeners or observers to hear the proceedings is not unnecessarily impeded. Public comment will not be allowed at this meeting. And during this meeting, the committee will not recess to a close or executive meeting pursuant to KSA 75-4319. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Advisor Siebers, and continue to guide us as necessary within whatever the parameters are. So first, thank you to everyone for participating. I know calling a meeting like this and at this time is a challenge, and I appreciate everyone taking their time and making their schedule work. So a huge thanks for that. As we look to what we were trying to do tomorrow with our one day in session and addressing some of the concerns that were there, there's one bill that is in conference, House Bill 2160, has a number of parts relating to various taxes and a number of proposals that were there. One of them related to internet sales tax. On internet sales tax, some things have changed since last year when the bill was in conference. The governor has a different directive on the collection of internet sales tax. And there are a couple parties that did a lot of work, including in April after we had adjourned, to try to figure out how we might address the key concerns that remained for Kansas. One of those dealt with marketplace sellers and the different level of competition that affords for internet sellers versus our brick and mortar businesses across the state on whom we've relied for many years and on whom we wish to continue to rely as being a part of the fabric of our community, supporting community events, providing jobs in our communities across the state, and to make sure that they do not face a competitive disadvantage with the online retailers, which in the times of the pressing issue that we've been trying to address, various moving parts of the current pandemic, would appear to increase online sales, given that we actually have had some of those businesses be closed for a period of time. So the priority is to remove any disadvantage that we provide in state law that would hamper those businesses competitively. There were two bills that started the session. The Chamber of Commerce worked with the NCSL basic language, and the Department of Revenue came up with a bill that came into session just a little bit later. Those two entities worked in great detail and length to hammer out the differences between those bills. There were still some differences, which are referred to as Section 7 of House Bill 2657, that dealt with other fees and taxes. Some of those were addressed in the subsequent House meeting, but that was the one area that was open where there hadn't been full agreement. Nonetheless, to address the marketplace piece and at the same time add a threshold, which we believe was set, but we being the members in the House, some of the guidance provided by the Attorney General. I can't necessarily speak for the Senate, but I welcome you to weigh in on the de minimis threshold of 100,000 that was pretty consistently set across the country. We would like that to be simple and certain for retailers across the nation so that there is not a different experience in dealing with Kansas. While we wish to have every competitive advantage for our brick and mortar businesses, we also don't wish to be a difficulty in collecting these taxes. Those are the key things that are accomplished from the parties that had worked on that, and the contents were placed into House Substitute for Senate Bill 266 in a House committee meeting last week. And I would ask for the Senate's consideration if we would place that content into 2160 for a conference committee report. So thanks for listening to that, and thank you for your consideration. All right, I hear the phone has been muted. Is there a way that our team can unmute the phone that our senators are participating on? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your offer. I have a couple of questions for you, and maybe for the revisers. Were there any amendments on the original bill coming out of committee?
So it would depend which bill. We went to 2657, and there were several amendments that were pretty lengthy in the agreement that was drafted between the Department of Revenue and the parties at the Kansas Chamber of Commerce. In our committee, there were 2 amendments that were added on last week, and in those, I'm guessing, are the ones that you spoke to. One, we might be able to get some additional information from our conferee, Representative Mason, which dealt with the phone companies and the 911 fees, and another related to transient guests, and perhaps Representative Gartner could help us with some details on that, as well as the reviser.
Thank you.
Are you wishing for me to speak, Mr. Chairman?
At the request of the Senate Chair, that would be great.
Okay, I will await that request.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We're not able to hear.
Would you restate your question for Representative Mason or the reviser?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. While the original bill, the Senate has seen versions of this, so yes, we would entertain looking at that. These 2 amendments have never come before the Senate. So if you would like to explain those.
Yes, with your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
The amendment I offered at our Zoom meeting last week, Madam Chairman, just 2 small balloons. The first balloon basically said that the marketplace facilitators would henceforth be responsible for collecting the 911 fee on prepaid wireless service. Right now, if you go to a brick and mortar store and you buy a prepaid wireless card, then you are paying that 911 fee, and certain online sellers, you are paying that online fee, but it's not universal. Some of the marketplace facilitators have found a way around that. So basically the First Amendment, the balloon amendment, states that that would be universal, that the 911 fee would be collected on prepaid wireless. And the second balloon amendment just established a date of July 1st of 2021. And that was at the request of some of the marketplace facilitators to give them 13, 14 months to get up to speed. And that was the crux of the 2 amendments that I offered. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also ask, what was the transient guest portion?
Madam Chair, this is Representative Gartner. I did bring 2 amendments to this bill. One of them was actually removing Section 7, okay, which eliminated the facilitator to collect taxes and fees. So by eliminating that, there was a question about transient guest fees. And today, all your local providers, hotel room providers pay that transient guest fee. If we go via a marketplace facilitator or that platform, and you book an Airbnb or book possibly a hotel room back in, let's say, Topeka, Kansas, not necessarily were they sending our local Topeka city the transient guest fees. So this would make sure that if they're going to book via that platform, that they'll collect and remit transient guest fees back to the originating location.
Thank you. Committee, did you have any questions? Senator Kirshen?
Am I talking to her or what? No. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question. You mentioned this transient guest fees. What percentage aren't paying them? What's the gap there? Some do and some won't. What percentage aren't paying them?
Senator, I am not sure of what percentage is not actually paying them. We know and that there are some that aren't collecting and remitting. So this would just level, I hate level the playing field, but make it fair that everybody collects and remits.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? While we appreciate the offer, and I want to be clear on this, you are offering those two amendments also. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, there's a number of amendments if we go back to the original draft that would be fairly lengthy that were worked through. So it would be the bill as passed out last week.
I think we're going to have to take a look at that. As I understand, there's also a fiscal note on that. Is that correct?
There is a fiscal note on that. It is partially offset by the addition of a threshold to both existing collections and to the marketplace. But the net is just under 20 million in the first year, 19 point something, and revenue can perhaps provide that for us and get a copy of that to you. Would it be possible for revenue to send that to the senators if they do not have it?
Will that be via email?
Is that to me, Mr. Chairman? You want me to send out copies of this Adam Siebers of all the amendments? Is that what you requested?
I think at the moment it's the fiscal note, but the amendments might be useful as well. If you can send what we had for 2657, and then to revenue, or if research can help us with a fiscal note as it was passed out would be helpful also. And would that address the questions that you had, Senator Tyson?
I think so. Senator Holland, Senator Kirshen, did you have any other questions?
This is Senator Holland. I'm good.
Mr. Chairman, Department of Revenue can correct me if I'm wrong, but what we'd written up after your committee completed its action on House substitute for Senate Bill 266 was that the bill would be expected to increase use tax receipts in fiscal 21 by about 19.4 million. 16.2 million of that would be for the state general fund and 3.2 million for the state highway fund.
If I may, on that fiscal note, I was told that the original fiscal note was 25 million. Is that not correct?
That may well be, Senator. I might ask Revenue to chime in. I think the original fiscal note was somewhat higher because on one of the original bills, there was not the $100,000 threshold originally in House Bill 2657. And so that lowered the amount of positive money with the insertion of the threshold that is applicable not only to the marketplace facilitators, but also to the out-of-state retailers.
Yeah, we need clarification on that.
Madam Chair, this is Kathleen Smith with the Kansas Department of Revenue, and Chris is absolutely correct. The fiscal note on the original 2657 did not have the $100,000 threshold for the remote sellers. As it was passed out of the House committee last week, that was in there, and so the fiscal note did decrease. And what Chris has told you, it is a little under 20 million for fiscal year 21. That is correct.
Thank you, Kathleen. Would you mind, or Chris, sending that also in an email so the committee members have it?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, committee? Is that your offer, Mr. Chairman, or is there anything else that you would like to discuss?
That is the offer. The key focus was to have a bill where we'd have the up or down vote to give the certainty to businesses and to address the competitive disadvantage.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you mind, we need to convene as usual, as we do with these conference committees. The Senate will discuss your offer, and we would like to get back with you as soon as possible. Senator Kirshen, Senator Holland, do you think we could visit and reconvene in the next 10 minutes, or is that too soon? Senator Holland?
Madam Chair, this is Senator Holland. I am ready and available.
Wonderful. We will be in contact, and is 10 minutes okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it is. Shall we just say that we'll reconvene at 5:05, and if folks want to stay on the call, we can, and we'll just
That would be
join
easier.
back in. We'll look forward to that at 5:05.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know.
For those listening on the call, I did get a note, and the Senate is asked for just another 10 minutes. So 10 minutes more at 5:15. We will assume the call will pick back up. 5:15. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate you guys understanding that, you know, this is a pretty big position for the state, and we very much appreciate the offer and your willingness to call this conference committee. We would ask your indulgence that we be able to reconvene at 8 p.m. We want to spend a little bit of time looking this over. We think that, again, you guys have done some good work, and we just want to make sure that we don't drop the ball. Would that be amenable to everyone?
I can. I wonder how late into the night we might go.
Well, hopefully we will come up with an offer at 8. I think we can negotiate it then. We just have too many unknowns at this point.
Okay.
And so, and we would meet sooner. However, we do have scheduling conflicts at 6 and 6:30 p.m. Although this is a major priority, it's, we have others that we are not able to change that schedule.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah, we would have definitely met sooner.
Sure. Okay. Well, with our joint apologies to staff, we will
Absolutely.
reconvene at 8 p.m. and look forward to consideration of the offer at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. And thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks to everyone. And we will resume the call to our staff. Will we be able to use the same link and the same password for the Zoom meeting for those on the Zoom, as well as the same contact or links for those who are calling in and listening?
Mr. Chairman, I would defer to Robin, but I think I asked her that question last night, and I think the answer is yes, but I want to get the laying on of hands from Robin or Travis on that.
Thank you.
Yes, the answer is yes. So we'll just end this meeting, then we'll start it back up at 8 o'clock.
Sounds great. We'll see everyone at 8, and thanks to everyone.
And thank you.
Mm-hmm. Bye.